Minister for Information, the Deputy Majority Leader and Member of Parliament for Asukwa, and other members of Parliament, Inspector General of Police, and other security chiefs, Chairperson of the National Commission on Civic Education, the Director General of the National Civil Bureau, the Director General of the Cyber Security Authority, Managing Editor of the Ghana Report, NIGA, NIME, NAME, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished invited guests, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. I'm grateful to the Managing Editor of the Ghana Report, Ashida Sani, for the invitation to be here today. Today we gather to discuss a topic of great importance to our democracy, dealing with misinformation and information, election 2024. This discussion is relevant and crucial to preserving the integrity of our democratic process. Ghana stands proudly as a beacon of democracy in Africa. Since the return to constitutional rule in 1993, with the promulgation of the Constitution of the Fourth Republic, after 3 decades of military rule, we've conducted 8 successful general elections. These elections have resulted in 3 peaceful transitions of commitment to democratic principles and the rule of law. The peaceful transitions of power, as evidenced by the changes in national political leadership from the New Patriotic Party to the National Democratic Congress and back, underscores the maturity of our democratic institutions and the resilience of our electoral processes. Our democratic journey has been made possible by the active participation of the citizenry and the independence of the judiciary. These institutions have made significant contributions to safeguarding the rule of law and ensuring that the will of the people is respected. Our media landscape, characterized by diverse and free media, has been effective in promoting transparency and accountability. The Electoral Commission has consistently demonstrated its attachment to conducting free, fair, and credible elections. The Commission's dedication to transparency and its efforts to engage with all stakeholders have been crucial in maintaining public confidence in the electoral process. Ghana's democracy is not just a model for Africa, but I dare say for the world as well. Our ability to uphold democratic values in the face of various challenges has earned us the respect and admiration of the international community. However, as we prepare for the 2024 general elections, we must remain vigilant and proactive in addressing emerging threats to our democracy. As President, I undertake to guarantee that the 2024 general elections will be conducted peacefully, transparently, and credibly. The success of our democracy hinges on the integrity of our electoral process. It is our collective responsibility to protect this process from any form of manipulation, interference, or intimidation, including the pernicious spread of false information. As we approach the 2024 general elections, the Akufo Addo government is dedicated to upholding the highest standards of electoral integrity. We recognize that the peaceful conduct of elections is essential to sustaining public trust in our democratic institutions. To this end, we've taken several measures to ensure that the electoral process is free, fair, and transparent. Our security agencies have been directed to remain impartial and vigilant in maintaining law and order throughout the electoral period. The police service in particular has been tasked with ensuring that all political activities are conducted peacefully and within the confines of the law, including the law on vigilantism. We're also working closely with the Electoral Commission to provide the necessary support for the successful conduct of the elections. In addition to these measures, we've launched public awareness campaigns to educate citizens about their rights and responsibilities during the electoral process. These campaigns aim to empower voters to make informed decisions and to participate actively in the democratic process. Ladies and gentlemen, misinformation, which refers to false or inaccurate information spread unintentionally, and disinformation, which involves the deliberate dissemination of false information to deceive, pose significant threats to our democracy. False narratives can distort public perception, undermine trust in our institutions, and even incite violence. As we have seen in various parts of the world, the unchecked spread of misinformation and disinformation can have dire consequences for democratic stability. The digital age has transformed the way information is disseminated and consumed. While this has brought numerous benefits, it has also created fertile grounds for the spread of misinformation and disinformation. Social media platforms in particular have become hotspots for the rapid dissemination of false information. The impact of misinformation and disinformation on the electoral process cannot be exaggerated. False information can skew public perception of candidates and political parties, leading to uninformed decision-making at the polls. It can also create confusion and mistrust, undermining the credibility of the electoral process. Moreover, disinformation campaigns often exploit societal divisions and amplify existing tensions, posing a risk to social cohesion. We've witnessed how such campaigns can incite violence and disrupt public order, as seen in other parts of the world. In the run-up to the 2008, 2012, and 2016 presidential elections, and Madam Sani, I'm not here to settle scores, I was the target of numerous false and malicious stories aimed at attacking my credibility and integrity. In 2008, baseless allegations of drug trafficking were spread, along with numerous rumors about my health intended to cast doubt on my ability to serve as president. President Akufo was also accused in 2008 of having sold all of Ghana's gold reserves. Again, the 2012 election saw false reports of my alleged arrest in London for drug possession and fabricated quotes designed to stir ethnic tensions. In 2016, it was alleged by sympathizers of the opposition that I had killed my late wife. Today, with a few months to the December 2024 elections, they are at it again. A fabricated document entitled Ejapadia is being peddled around by operatives of the opposition as evidence of a grand scheme by my party to annex the assets of the state. These experiences underscore the importance of discerning truth from falsehood and the need for all of us to remain vigilant against the dangers of misinformation and disinformation. As we approach the 2024 general elections, we have to address these challenges head-on. We should take proactive measures to curb the spread of false information and ensure that the public has access to accurate and reliable information. In today's digital age, the media, both traditional and digital, is central to shaping public opinion. It is essential that media outlets adhere to the highest standards of journalistic integrity and accuracy. Journalists must be vigilant in verifying information before dissemination, and media houses must prioritize fact-checking and correcting false reports. Social media, while revolutionizing communication, has also become platforms for misinformation and disinformation. While social media has democratized information sharing, it has also made it easier for false information to proliferate. This poses an immense challenge, particularly during election periods when the stakes are high and the public's right to accurate information is paramount. It is important that these apps take proactive measures to identify and remove false content while promoting credible sources of information. Collaboration between governments and technology companies is imperative in this regard. The media landscape has evolved considerably over the last few decades, with the rise of digital platforms transforming the way we consume information. Traditional media outlets, including newspapers, radio, and television, have long been trusted sources of news. However, the advent of social media has introduced new dynamics, enabling the rapid spread of information to a global audience. Government recognizes the importance of working collaboratively with media organizations and technology companies to address this challenge. We have initiated dialogues with these stakeholders to explore effective strategies for combating misinformation and disinformation. We have undertaken several initiatives to address this challenge, such as A, strengthening regulatory frameworks. We've enhanced our legal and regulatory frameworks to hold individuals and organizations accountable for spreading false information. B, collaborating with technology companies. We're engaging with social media companies and other tech firms to develop mechanisms for monitoring and curbing the spread of false information. These partnerships are essential in our fight against digital misinformation and misinformation. C, public awareness campaigns. Educating the public about the dangers of misinformation and disinformation and how to identify false information is crucial. We will launch nationwide campaigns to raise awareness and promote media literacy among our citizens. And D, supporting fact-checking organizations. Fact-checking organizations play a vital part in verifying information and debunking false claims. The government will provide support to these organizations to enhance their capacity and reach. In addition to these efforts, I'm pleased to announce the government is in the process of putting in place a national action plan to combat misinformation and disinformation. This comprehensive plan, currently before Cabinet for its consideration and action, outlines strategic steps to address the spread of false information. The action plan aims to defend our democratic processes, protect the integrity of our elections, and promote an informed and engaged citizenry. By implementing this plan, we're taking a proactive stance to ensure that misinformation and disinformation do not undermine our hard-won democratic gains, as well as the peace and stability of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Political parties and candidates have a fiduciary duty to conduct themselves with integrity and honesty. The spread of false information for political gain undermines our democratic process and erodes public trust. I urge all political actors to commit to truthfulness and transparency in their campaigns. We must all remember that our actions today will shape the future of our nation. Let us engage in constructive dialogue and present our ideas and policies to the electorate in a truthful and respectful manner. Campaigns should be based on substantive issues, false information, or personal attacks. Political actors should demonstrate leadership and integrity by rejecting misinformation and disinformation and by promoting a culture of honesty and accountability. I also call on political parties and candidates to educate their supporters about the importance of peaceful conduct during the electoral process. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that the elections are conducted in an atmosphere of peace and respect, free of violence and intimidation. Civil society organizations are invaluable partners in the efforts to curb misinformation and disinformation. Their work in promoting transparency, accountability, and media literacy, civil society to continue their advocacy and to work closely with government and other stakeholders. The public has also a crucial role to play. As consumers of information, we must be discerning and skeptical of the sources on which we rely. It is important to verify information before sharing it and to rely on reputable news sources. Each of us has a responsibility to contribute to a well-informed electorate. Media literacy is a key component of the strategy to combat misinformation. By educating citizens on how to evaluate properly information, we can empower them to make informed decisions and to recognize and reject false information. Civil society organizations and educational institutions have insightful contributions to make in promoting media literacy and critical thinking skills. I also encourage the public to participate actively in the democratic process because the democratic process is essentially about the public. This includes attending public forums, engaging with political candidates, and exercising their right to vote. An informed and engaged electorate is the foundation of a strong democracy. As we move towards the 2024 general elections, let us reaffirm our commitment to a fair and transparent electoral process. Misinformation and disinformation are challenges that require collective action. By working together, government, media, civil society, political parties, and the public, we can create an environment where truth prevails and our democracy thrives. In conclusion, I want to thank the Ghana Report for organizing this event and for their continuous efforts of promoting credible journalism. Let us all pledge to curb misinformation and disinformation as we prepare for the 2024 general election. Together, we can ensure that our elections result in true reflections of the will of the people and that Ghana continues to stand as a beacon of democracy and stability. May God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention.
His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo Addo and Atunene Mutuono. ɔkyerɛ mu a nsɛm a ɔmanfoɔ bi ɛkeka faa ne ho mmerɛ bi atwa mu mmerɛ na ɛdu sɛ yɛbɛto ne so aba ɔmanfoɔ ka nsɛm faa ne ho ebi kora kyerɛ mu sɛ yɛakyere no ɛwɔ amanɔne a ɔkita no bɔne a whole lot ebi kora kyerɛ sɛ ne yere ɔno ɛna ɛku no ne ade nyinaa no ɔkyerɛ sɛ saa nsɛm yi nyinaa no kora biara nim na ɛduru mmerɛ a yɛsan bɛto aba yi ɔmanfoɔ bi ahyɛ aseɛ asan ɛredi saa nsɛmmɔne no bio nti ɔbɛsrɛ sɛ yɛn nyinaa yɛmfa yɛn ho nyem na election ho nsɛm a ɛnyɛ nokorɛ a ɔmanfoɔ ɛka fa ɔmanfoɔ ho no ɛbɔ man nti ɛbɛtumi a yɛn nyinaa yɛmfa yɛn ho nyem na yɛntu ɛso sa. Tabusua Ghana Mampani Tabusua Ghana Mampani His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo Addo ojaye mu na wafi hako.
I'd also like to acknowledge a few other people who are with us. We have Reverend Dr. Ernest Educhenfi, Chairman National Peace Council, is with us. Biobiana Akufo, Deputy Director of Communications in DC. Ms. Samia Nkrumah, former MP, daughter of President Nkrumah, is also here with us. Mr. Prosper Bani, former Chief of Staff, former Minister of Interior. Grace Massin, High Commissioner, South Africa. Richard Rizali, Ambassador of the European Union. Jonas Claes, European Union Delegation to Ghana, Deputy Head of Delegation. Nathaniel Adisi Olore, CEO of EIB Network, is also with us. Ambassador
Tabusua Ghana Mampani His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo Addo so a oye ni nyina Ghana Mampani His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo Addo na wawie ne dwumadi wɔ ha wɔkɔ no akɔtoa ne dwumadi so sɛ Ghana Mampani no Abusia yankona yankotwa dwumadi no ɛso Ghana News TV so message sɛ ne ndi kan aba ha hwɛ ano subscribe no share the amai na the Ghana report summit ɛkɔso no ɛfa nsɛm a ɔmanfoɔ bi aya na ɔmo ka fa mampanifo bi a wɔmo pɛ dibia ɛwɔ my Ghana mu no akyi obi wɔ hɔ a ɔbɛka asɛm bi yayaaya to obi so a wɔno ankasa nim sɛ pefee asɛm wɔka nokorɛ bi anim nanso na ogu so a na ɔka de gu nipa ne ho fi ɛno ɛna nam so ama the Ghana report for summit yi na ɔma deal with misinformation and disinformation yɛ minister ɛna ɛkɔ no media for deɛ onim sɛ yɛ minister baako pɛ maame Fatima abusua na yɛnkɔɛ na yɛnkɔto adwumadie ne so.
Our conversation is focused on misinformation and disinformation, challenges and background. First of all, I like to take the opportunity to thank the organizers for making me part of this conversation. This is a conversation that is most relevant to forming and shaping together as a people the conducive environment that we so much need, so much require for the planning, preparation, and conduct of the 2024 election in our dear country, particularly with respect to misinformation and disinformation. I'm most grateful to be invited here. Thank you very much for that question. Now, my task here is one of the supporting effort. I'm simply to make some introductory remarks that will usher in our team of distinguished panelists who will deliberate on the topic at hand, misinformation and disinformation, challenges and impacts, in the context of the 2024 parliamentary and presidential elections. In doing so, I wish to draw attention to a few issues, hopefully within the 10 minutes that have been allocated. Let me start by saying that our dear country, Ghana, guided by our motto of freedom and justice, has since the inception of the Fourth Republic become an example of democratic constitutional order with peaceful change of government through election, and that Ghanaians wish that the 2024 elections would be transparent and result in the declaration of credible results that reflect the will of the electorate and leave contestants with no choice but to accept the results. Our 1992 Constitution captures the fundamental human rights and freedoms that should be enjoyed not only by the citizenry but by all who live here in Ghana. These rights derive their global character from the ethics outlined in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international law as captured in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, as well as other international law and international and domestic human rights laws. Now, paramount among these rights is the freedom of expression, freedom of speech if you want. The right of freedom of expression is, however, not an absolute right. It is a derogable right and has primary limitation to the extent that it should not, in its exercise, encroach or infringe on the rights of others, threaten or endanger peaceful coexistence, national stability, and therefore national security for that matter. Misinformation and disinformation are two primary ways in which the very right of freedom of expression could be abused, or by which peaceful coexistence, national stability, and national security could be undermined, in spite of existing domestic and international restrictive control mechanisms and protocols. In fact, the World Economic Forum 2023-2024 Perception Survey ranks misinformation and disinformation as the first among 10 risks for the period 2024-2025. So you can see that our election is falling within that period where misinformation and disinformation ranks first among the 10 risks that was considered by the World Economic Forum in its, in its work. Now, in the context of our 2024 elections, while misinformation would basically refer to the unintentional spreading of false or inaccurate information on the situation or of other stakeholders, disinformation would refer to the deliberate creation and spread of false information with the intention of deceiving the electorate. Now, electioneering entails influence operations that involve passage of copious information by political leaders and their party activists aimed at convincing the electorate to vote for them and to deny the other party the vote. The challenge we face as a country is that the 2024 elections have already gathered so much momentum that it promises to be a highly contested election. It is therefore most appropriate that we are having a conversation such as we have today to clearly identify the menace we face and to brainstorm on innovative ways that will keep misinformation and disinformation before, during, and after the 2024 elections in check, so as to avoid their impact as a threat to peaceful coexistence and that we are so proud of, or pose a threat of violence or social disruption in the nature that some of our neighbors have had to go through in time past. I will therefore urge you, our distinguished panelists, for this morning's first plenary session, to critically evaluate the threats of misinformation and disinformation and examine the potential challenges that we are likely to face therefrom, before, during, and after the elections, as well as the impact that those challenges are likely to have on the elections and our democracy for that matter, so as to enable us, working all of us together, seek consensus on how to address them. Let me please, in that regard, draw attention to the fact that misinformation and disinformation could be used for various purposes, often with significant social and political impacts, including to sway public opinion, discredit opponents, influence election outcomes, and indeed be the source of societal tensions, polarization, and violence by amplifying and spreading controversial and unproven matters. Please permit me also, panelists, to remark that although misinformation and disinformation have been with us through the ages, these concepts have been greatly influenced by technological innovation and are no longer in their rudimentary form. As both scholars in the military and the academia agree, we are now in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and diverse global environment, which, due to rapid technological innovation, is constantly evolving in digital space at a rather unpredictable pace. We need to take care of it. We need to take note of that, the environment in which we are. Now, in this environment, cause and effect relationships are no longer simple and direct, but come in diverse, complicated loops. We are indeed in an information age that is unfolding in digital space, access to which is highly pervasive among the general population. The ubiquitous global pervasiveness of access to social media with impact across regions in the world attests to this. Its attributes of global anonymity and speed of spread also provide strands that immensely task the security response effort. The task of seeking a balance between freedom of expression on the one hand and accountability, security, and stability imperatives of the state and its institutions on the other hand with respect to elections has thus become even more daunting and complex. I must say that it is in this context that you, my distinguished panelists, are being called upon today to seek that balance, not only within the domestic environment, but also the global battle space, considering that the threat and impact of misinformation and disinformation to the 2024 elections is not restricted to the domestic environment. I dare say that that will require quite some innovative and collaborative thinking from you, our distinguished panelists. No wonder you have been so carefully selected by the organizers. Congratulations. Let me also please remind you, our distinguished panelists, that we are barely 4 months to the elections. The solutions that you will seek to propose today need necessarily take cognizance of this time frame within which compliance is to be exerted. You may therefore also want to consider innovative preventative measures that emphasize public awareness creation, a transparent, free, and credible election that reflects the will of the people, makes the risks posed by misinformation and disinformation residual and inconsequential, and thus leave the loser with no choice but to graciously accept the results. I wish you very fruitful deliberations. I thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will be moving to the plenary, and so can I have those who are on the panel to get ready? But we're going to play back the video, the documentary that we played earlier because of the poor audio quality in the beginning. So we're going to replay that as we get our panel members ready. So can we have the video on the screens now?
Misinformation and disinformation are not just about misleading the public. They have the power to disrupt societies. Welcome to Ghana, a beacon of democracy in West Africa, where the spirit of freedom and unity shines bright. As we approach the December 2024 elections, our nation's democratic values face a significant threat: the spread of misinformation and disinformation. In an age where information travels at the speed of light, distinguishing between truth and falsehood has become increasingly challenging.
Fake news poses an existential threat to our democracy. Digital media remains a major conduit for the spread of misinformation and disinformation, which has the potential of undermining the democratic process
and jeopardize the very foundation of our democracy.
The security implications are very dire. When information is distorted, either in a misinformed form or disinformed form, it creates the condition for people to make wrong choices, wrong decisions, and they get onto the streets. The choices for making misinformation or disinformation are ours, but the consequences are not ours.
One of the drawbacks of our profession has to do with information and how it's managed. There's disinformation and then there's misinformation. As we go into election 2024, we should all be very wary of the information we share, the information we consume, and how we even use it. I entreat all of you to support the Ghana Report Summit as we create a platform to ensure that only the right information that is helpful to our society is what we put out. I wish you fruitful deliberations, and remember, information yes, misinformation, disinformation no. The Ghana Report Summit, thank you very much for this platform.
From manipulated images and videos to fabricated news stories, the digital landscape is rife with content designed to deceive. This December, as Ghanaians head to the polls, the stakes are higher. But there is hope. Across the nation, initiatives are being launched to educate the public about the dangers of misinformation and disinformation and the importance of critical thinking. At the Ghana Report, our journalists are trained to identify and combat false information, ensuring that the news you receive is accurate and reliable. Together, we can protect the integrity of our elections and uphold Ghana's democratic principles. By staying informed, verifying facts, and rejecting falsehoods, we each play a part in securing a brighter future for our nation. This December, let us unite to ensure that truth prevails and democracy thrives. The future of Ghana depends on it. Join us as we explore strategies to tackle misinformation and disinformation and safeguard our democratic values. Together, we can make a difference.
Hello, I am Mahamudu Bawumia, the flag bearer of the new Patriotic Party for the 2024 presidential elections. This decision that we are about to make as a country, the election of our president, will be based on information. It is therefore very important that the information we put out is accurate. And it is therefore important that we desist from putting out misinformation or disinformation. The Ghana Report Summit is organizing an event to help us deal with misinformation and disinformation. And I encourage everyone to pay attention to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rashida, and the Ghana Report for this very important summit on the issue of misinformation and disinformation. This summit cannot have come at a better time, especially in the run-up to the election of 2024. This is the political season, and this is the season where all political parties and candidates in the election are making their best effort to transmit their messages to the electorate. I have always strived for accuracy, and I have urged members of my team to always be truthful and honest and accurate in the messages that we put out to the electorate. Unfortunately, we are in our team having to deal and spend a lot of time to deal with fake news that is either attributed to me or to other members of the NDC. This takes a lot of time and effort. And so I think that the discussions that you're going to have here should be useful in trying to create the space for the electorate to be able to absorb, honest and truthful messages from all the players in the political space. By training, I'm a communications and media
Okay, I wanted another round of applause for our last speaker, who indicated that no fake news. Can we please have the members of the panel find their way up? So members of the panel, please come up. We have Estella Kofi-Osoa, Richard.
Your panel. Thank you very much, Israel, and thank you all. We're looking forward to a very healthy conversation, and I want to take up on something that Rashida said. This is going to
settling scores. We are here to explore the solutions and put together something that will help make the action plan that the president talks about even more useful as we approach elections. I want to introduce my panelists. Estella Akufo-Addo, thank you very much for joining us. She's the regional manager at C-Square West Africa. Estelle, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Edward Omani-Boama, who's the Director of Elections and ICT with the National Democratic Congress. Hello, Doc. Long time no see. Good to have you. Honorable Fatima Abubakar is the Minister of Information. Thank you. And thank you. It's another award that last year they put together that summit to gather inputs into the National Action Plan that the President has updated us on today, that is now before Cabinet. We'll explore it a bit more, understand how that addresses the problem. Joyce Muktari is spokesperson, former President John Mahama. Hello, Joyce.
Hi, good morning, good morning, good morning.
And Kathleen Adi, chairperson of the NCCE. Hello, Kathleen.
Good morning.
Kofi Tonto is a political assistant to the Vice President. Hello, Kofi.
Yeah. Good morning.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And I want to start by getting your reflections on what our good friend Babulati just told us about. And I know, and I was noticing that Dr. Mani-Boama, you were nodding at some of the things that he was saying, and so I said I will start with you when we sit for a conversation. What were your reflections on what you heard there? We've heard a lot from the president, laying out for us how dangerous this is, and we have from Babulati himself talking about the dangers going into the 2024 elections. For you, what are your reflections on what you've heard so far?
Yeah, thanks once again, Evans. Listening to
We'll get that fixed. We'll get that fixed.
Thanks once again, Evans, and standing on all the protocols established. Listening to Larry, I was thinking about the impact of technology itself on misinformation and disinformation, and what disinformation and misinformation is also doing to technology, and the combination of the two on society. And it tells you, with internet in particular, and the world in our palms, whatever comes out of our mouth, whatever comes out of our fingers, can either create or destroy. He made incursions into something that I think His Excellency the President alluded to, which has to do with the National Action Plan, which is before Cabinet. My humble submission is that 4 months to an election, they would have to do a lot to subject the document to very broad consultation, lest it becomes a tool just to mute political opponents, because some of these things can also be found in the world of subjective interpretation. But by and large, we all do agree and admit, and as President Mahama said, he in particular is a major victim of misinformation, disinformation. Joyce Bauer also is one. I mean, sometimes you read some of the things and they will clone your media house, your logo, and sometimes TV3 logo and all. So it is good for us to deal with it. But how? The document must be made public ASAP so that we can all make meaningful inputs.
Okay. And I'll note that when I come to the information minister, just so that he can give us the roadmap going into the this coming out of cabinet. But I want to come to Kofi also on this, your quick reflections.
So my reflections really focused on solutions. I think when it comes to these issues, the most important thing is how are we resolving it? But more importantly, how are we resolving it without necessarily taking sides? Because if we don't do that, that is where the issue really becomes sticky. So for me, I would almost agree with my senior colleague that let's look at solutions that gives everyone the opportunity to contribute, so that when the final solution comes out, we can all agree to. So for me, solution should be the paramount thing that we focus on.
And let's start that then. I want to bring Kathleen in. And Kathleen, and one of the things that I had today was about empowering the public. Literacy is very, very important. So at least you are equipped with some basics to spot when it's fake, or at least your suspicions are aroused, that you can ask further questions. Is the NCC doing anything in this regard as we approach the 2024 elections?
Thank you very much. Indeed. Just yesterday I returned from Tamale, where we had events in the Dapemo Palace, the Chogo Palace, as part of very general, nationwide activities that we are currently undertaking. Misinformation, disinformation, and fake news as a threat to our existence as a nation is one of the key things for the public education we are undertaking this year as we work towards and prepare for the 2024 elections. So yes, there's a lot of work going on around that. And I just want to highlight that in spaces like this, when we start talking about solutions, most of the time we lean heavily on the side of technology-based solutions. We say that we must build more platforms, we must work with the social media platform owners and all of that. But I think critically it is so important that we start to look at the issue of media literacy, how people consume information that they come across, particularly on social media, and how they use that information. I think that especially in our environment, especially for an election period such as we are going into, this is extremely important. How do people consume the information? Because if you deploy all the technology and you don't equip people to be able to interact with technology in a way that benefits them actually, then really truly the technology you won't get the full impact of the technology deployed. So for me, especially when it comes to the National Action Plan and every other conversation that we are having around this issue, it is important that we focus on the human element, the people element, how individuals interact with technology, how this issue affects people on a personal basis, and how the solution should be a people-centered solution where we look at how people respond to information, react to information, because at the end of the day, perception is reality. How people perceive things defines how they respond. So it will not be enough to say, well, it's fake news. You must ensure that people are equipped to discern and equipped to make meaningful input and equipped to make decisions that benefit themselves and society.
And you make the point about technology, so I want to bring in Estelle into this conversation, because often the tech companies are accused of providing the platform for misinformation and disinformation to thrive. What measures, if you may, C-Squared and others within your space in Ghana are taking this year to limit the impact of misinformation and disinformation, if you can eliminate it?
Yeah, thank you, and good to be on the panel. I think I'm the private sector representative here as well. So, in fact, one of my thoughts as I was preparing for this for this morning and realizing that I was the private sector representative as well as being the tech sector representative was whether Ghana's private sector is consumed today by around thoughts of misinformation and disinformation, or whether we are consumed with how just to keep our businesses alive in the current economic challenges that we face.
What's your answer to that? I think it's a very interesting point you've observed.
Well, so my thought around that, as I was reflecting on that, came to when you asked about my thoughts when Larry spoke. And having spent 8+ years working for Google, the biggest way anyone can combat disinformation or the wrong, false information on the internet about yourself or your organization is making sure that you are accurately and effectively telling your own story. And I think that as a citizen as well is something that we're so yearning to hear, is a party and a leader and leaders that have concrete words, plans, a demonstration of commitment to nation and to the citizens, that we're actually going to see our country taking its rightful place, not only on the continent. I think the mic didn't like what I was saying in the region. We're slipping. I just spent a week in Ivory Coast. I regularly go to Togo. We're slipping as a nation, and we are such a blessed nation. We really need to continue to be a leader. So my thoughts are really around as citizens, and I'm so concerned as you speak to young people and middle age, whatever age, so many people feel like just not voting. And that isn't because they're getting the wrong information. It's like they're not getting any information that tells them this is a leader that I want to vote for and that I believe will remain committed to my country, to me as an individual. And that, to me, is the biggest challenge that we're facing as a nation. Now, your question was not that. And your question was about what C-Squared as an infrastructure company can do.
And others in your space.
And others in our space, right? So, but as an infrastructure company, what we do is build the roads. The road authority, as you build a road, you cannot determine whether the driver that gets in a car that goes on the road is going to have been drinking, will actually have done their driver's test or have paid for it and never gone to any training. The road authority is focused on building good roads. They can't determine, and that's where we then rely on the licensing authorities, the police on the road as they monitor the roads, etc. So the infrastructure, and as my colleague on the platform just said, our focus as technology companies and infrastructure companies is really about achieving our goal of access to all. We cannot deny the importance of information and technology across our economy for education, for agriculture, for the health sector, for businesses, you name it. Technology is an enabling platform. It runs across all sectors. It's not a standalone. So as I speak for the industry, really our continued goal is making sure that people can come online, can make phone calls, can send messages that are critical and important for our individual lives, but also for the entire economy. So that remains our goal. And today we still have many, many Ghanaians that do not have access to the internet, to reliable communication. So I think really the honest truth to that question is that remains our singular goal, is how to deliver in a very challenging environment, when you don't have reliable electricity, it's a very difficult environment as the value of our CD continues to fall and most of our inputs into how we deliver telecommunications are imported. That challenge and how to still deliver services at an affordable price, that remains our day-to-day challenge and our goal.
but not deliberately targeting those who use your platforms to misinform and disinform. Is that part of that?
Yeah, so I think as a telecommunication provider, you're not able to control what people do with that telecommunication, right? Now, the social media platforms do have more ability to control what goes onto their platforms that is accurate or not accurate. And indeed, as a nation, we can have the right policies and laws that allow us to penalize and take action against people who don't put the right information out there. But my answer to your question, and I think it is right, I do not know every answer, but really our role as telecommunications and infrastructure providers is to provide that platform and the means by which people are able to communicate everyday things people need to stay alive, run their businesses, etc.
Okay.
There are ways that, as I said, the social media platforms are able to, because that's all we are, is a conduit to get to that information, you know, to make that phone call. We cannot, without, unless you're asking us to tap into people's phone calls, which I know you are not asking us, or to monitor what people do on the internet. That is not what we are licensed to do, and it is not a right that we have. So there is some controlling that the social media platforms can do, but as has been touched on, it really does come down as well to us as individuals, educating ourselves, you know, educating our families. Every small step adds up. As an organization, we can educate our staff on phishing emails and so on that can be negative also for the company, but once you understand how to look for accurate and true information, not just at work or individually, you know, it has that ripple effect to also help us know when information, and we have to learn individually to look for.
And Estelle, I want to bring in Joyce into the conversation. Whilst I was listening to you, obviously, as a tech company, you provide the infrastructure, and then you have social media platforms who have a bit more control over the content. But Joyce, if you listen to what Babolati says towards the end, it says also needs to focus on preventative measures, because a lot of the things we've been talking about is trying to deal with it once the information is already out there, the disinformation and misinformation is already out there, and that the focus possibly should be on stopping the creation of the disinformation information in the first place. And I come to you because you spokesperson for a presidential candidate, and the accusation has always been leveled at politicians that you actually create the information, and that's where we need to be tackling, getting politicians to agree that the disinformation, misinformation factory needs to be dismantled, and that's where we need to start. Do you agree with that?
Well, let me say very quickly that we are looking for firm solutions. We stand on terra firma, and we agree with all previous speakers that largely this is a challenge right now. We are a political party. I represent the leader of the largest opposition party. What we expect is that we will have a message and be able to transmit this message without it being affected by fraudulent, dissemination, by various ways of promoting fake news, etc. Indeed, what I also will expect is that we will have solutions in the way that we report these things. We have various legislations that deal with matters of this kind. But of course, what happens when you lodge a formal complaint? I have a recent example of a complaint dated 4th of October 2023, lodged with the Criminal Investigations Department. Indeed, they themselves are now the subject of such misinformation and disinformation that they refuse even to stamp the complaints when you present them, because they have stamps that are being used wrongly and being abused by the wrong persons. So certainly we must find a solution, because it is actually in our interest first and foremost. But what I would actually have expected is that His Excellency the President, being the arbiter as we speak today, the buck stops with him. I would have hoped that he would realize that it is not just former President John Kufuor or he himself as president who has suffered the ramifications of fake news by way of misinformation and disinformation. John Mahama, like every other leader, has suffered similarly. Indeed, our challenge is even that when we lodge these complaints formally, we don't get the sort of reactions or reports or responses that we anticipate. So we do all have to find a solution. But yes, I think that we must start with governments. And I say this because I know that the information minister is here herself. I had conversations with the former information minister, the Honorable Kojo Oponkroma, and Dr. Mani Boama is here. He'll bear me witness and know that we have had these conversations. Certainly all of us suffer from the huge impact. And look, this is information that technologically goes out there in real time. By the time you find out and try to correct it or even introduce any remedial efforts by way of a statement or stamping the information fake, surprised that you will have all the news headlines carrying it. Indeed, I would say the buck stops with government because they have every effort and attempt that is available to control this, to stop the spread, because wherever it happens to us on the opposition side, you will find that most of the purveyors or conduits are actually actors, key actors from the side of government. So certainly something needs to be done, but let's not start a conversation in the run-up to this election all geared towards literally muffling or attempting to gag or even trying very hard to prevent the opposition from getting our messages out there too. I do know that not every Ghanaian is on social media. I also know very well that most of our persons do not even live on social media. Indeed, the fact checkers that His Excellency the President himself mentioned are indeed the subject of misinformation and disinformation as well. So this actually leaves a huge gap, a lacuna that all of us must find solutions to. I'm delighted that my lady, the Chief Justice, is here with us this morning. And I love the fact that lately, when people have spread defamatory information, photographs especially, about individuals, they have actually sought legal redress. So that is actually one way of dealing with it, that we deal swiftly through legal actions and lawsuits for that matter. But yes, I also expect that governance institutions, Criminal Investigations Department, the Cyber Security Unit of the Ghana Police Service, and the many other agencies that are actually sized with taxpayers' money to deal with these actions will deal with them swiftly when we do remember to lodge a formal complaint. I believe that if we start through some punitive measures, there might be a way to amicably end this sort of conversation, but certainly tackle the source first. How much resources do we have in a position really to fuel these sorts of huge spats of fake news and disinformation? We don't have that sort of capacity.
So the source, you say,
so the source largely starts, and I think the back stops and starts with government, yes.
Let's get Fatima to respond to that. You accept that challenge?
Thank you so much, Evans. First of all, let me acknowledge the presence of Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice of the Republic, His Majesty the Government Chair, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am excited that we are invited to the table because across board people have a lot of concerns when it comes to the spread of misinformation and disinformation. But as a ministry, we have a mandate to provide the solutions. So with your kind permission, I would like to pursue that rather than adding to the concerns or complaints. There is a preamble, there is a reason for the spread of misinformation and disinformation. And if we do not identify why there is a spread, then it will be difficult for us to even proffer solutions, or we will be limited to looking at this issue from subjective point of views as to how they affect us. Why do people spread misinformation and disinformation? There is a science to it, and I'll come to that, but there are two bases. One, because there is a vacuum. When there is lack of access to the real information or facts, a vacuum is created. People take advantage of that and begin to spread rumors. So it is incumbent upon duty bearers that we respond timeously so that there is no vacuum when there is spread of false news. If there is information and there is spread of false news, you are able to break the chain because people have alternative information and they are able to acknowledge the authentic one from the fake one. Secondly, and most importantly, because spreading fake news has been so rewarding, and this is what the science is telling us, it's not about speculation. A study that was conducted at MIT by Professor Bosogi and Professor Arau. In fact, Professor Arau was once the chief media scientist at Twitter, which is now X, from 2013 to 2017. When they conducted the research, it showed that fake news is 70% more likely to be retweeted than truth. In fact, the same study also showed that the speed at which fake news spreads, it will take real news 6 times as hard to reach an audience of 1,500. So those who spread fake news, they've benefited from it according to the science. And I'm not talking about the use of bots and trolls, because in this particular study, they were able to use technology to separate comments and reactions from bots to human beings. So all this data is based on human reaction to fake news. So if people realize that if I open an account today, I want to be a content creator, I want to be an influencer, I want to be a trendsetter, and I start talking about agriculture, education, I start talking about healthcare, and nobody is minding me. But the moment I start insulting a chief, I start insulting a president, I become an instant sensation. I can monetize my content and begin to benefit from it. And I'm saying this is a study that has come from people with insights from the app platforms, people with insights from the technical perspective. So we need to find solutions to these two, and that is what government has been doing. On the first part, which has to do with the creation of a vacuum, you know, with the coalition of CSOs on right to information, among others, it took us so many years to finally pass the Right to Information Act in 2019. Since it received the presidential assent in 2020, we have worked so hard to give effect to what the Constitution of the Fourth Republic envisaged to be the ideal situation when it comes to the right to information. At the Ministry of Information, ISD department, we have an access to information division where over the period we have recruited 350 RTI officers and deployed them to various MDAs. Where there are no RTI officers, we write to the institutions to designate some of their staff for training so that they will be able to process RTI requests. If you followed the recent annual report that I sent before Parliament on 30th June 2024, we gave data statistics on how the public, the media, have been using the RTI Act. It is very important to note that there are instances where we have conversations and people are talking about, okay, but I made a request, but this particular institution refused to honor it. The RTI Commission, which is also established under the Act, has been given the regulatory mandate, and over the period where there is non-compliance, they have actually fined public institutions to pay when they fail to provide information. In fact, even if the RTI Commission, which is the regulator, fails to look at the issues that have been brought before them, you can have recourse to the high courts. And there's been instances where some Ghanaian media have gone all the way to the high courts so that we can have a decision from the courts. This is important because you realize that now people have the comfort that if they so desire, if you are a citizen of Ghana, whether you are a politician, whether you are a journalist, you are a security person, you need information to facilitate anything, except where those information are exempt under the Act. You are entitled, as of rights, as a Ghanaian, to have access to the information. Also, Dr. Omane Boama, my senior predecessor, was talking about the action plan. The action plan and its development, I remember you moderated one of the
This was last year
validation,
when you
yes,
did a
the validation exercises. It has come because over the past 2 years at the Ministry of Information, we've been preoccupied with engagements with key stakeholders from MDAs to CSOs to media organizations, media associations, fact-checking institutions, the EU, app developers.
What about the political parties?
Political parties, I'm coming to that. When we did the validation exercise on the action plan, they stated 64 stakeholders that upon approval by cabinet, we need to co-opt into a working committee to make inputs. And if you look at the list, I'm willing after today's engagement to share the draft document that we submitted to cabinet to Doc for his observation so that he will have clarity that it is not intended to gag or to stop people from putting out information.
So what will they do instead?
It is intended to give effect to our rights as Ghanaians to information, because spread of misinformation and disinformation are threats to right to information. But these are the key areas that the strategy is looking at. One has to do with media literacy.
And I want you to, if you don't mind,
Yes.
because I've just been told that we don't have enough time. I want everybody else to chip in again. So briefly in a minute, if you like.
So let me hit the points without explaining, but the key areas include media literacy. Also, we are talking about establishing a mechanism for reporting misinformation and disinformation. We are also talking about enhancing fact-checking mechanisms. We are also talking about promoting ethical media practice, including establishment of fact-checking desks at various media houses, among others. And we're also talking about legislation. As I speak to you, we have the draft broadcasting bill before cabinet. I went around on a media tour to engage stakeholders that we intend to bring it before Parliament under a certificate of urgency. And we hope that when it comes out of cabinet, there will be that consensus for us to be able to pass it. So we are willing to engage beyond.
Dr. Manibwama, reassured?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really, because how I wish that we all cooked it together instead of in the course of the development, major stakeholders like political parties being treated like afterthought.
Yeah.
But I must also say that dealing with misinformation, and the earlier speakers, if you listen to them carefully, it is obvious the gravity of misinformation may not be at the same level as that of disinformation, which has a certain level of intentionality, willful use of wrong information for effect. And because the theme also hinges on the 2024 elections, I want to quickly look at the tripod on which elections hinge: the Electoral Commission, the judiciary, and the security. We don't have much time, so I'll just use the Electoral Commission as an example. We all witnessed during the last limited registration exercise the number of times that I had to use my Facebook page to correct errors, arithmetic errors that the Electoral Commission had engaged in terms of the number of people who had been registered. In fact, it got to a point where I just decided to stop and only went to IPAC and disclose the additional ones. Let me cite another classic example. We all witnessed in the year 2020 the presidential elections. Results were announced on the 9th. Results were changed because of the nature of the calculation that was done. The contestation between total vote cast and the total valid votes. And another change also occurred. If you are to situate it on the axis of misinformation and disinformation, where are you going to place this kind of institutional, either misinformation or disinformation? I do not want to make any value judgment at this stage. But the real problem is, at this stage, we are going into another elections, almost 4 years on. We do not have any plausible explanation
why that kind of egregious omission was occasioned. And we are particularly concerned because progressing into another election, we are also seeing the manifestations of such arithmetic inconsistencies. So even as we look at what individuals do, what political actors do to misinform, to disinform, we must also be looking at what institutions also do that may either intentionally, willfully, or inadvertently misinform the populace, because these can also be very, very dangerous and inimical to the peace and stability of the country. Last but not least, and
whilst you wrap up, also, I want to spend the next 5 minutes getting from each of you your proposed solutions to the problem. So when you do that, then you add that to that for me.
Sure. This one is, and let me cite a very common example. It's unfortunate H.E. the president is not here, but I'm sure my senior brother, Nobo Kandapa, will convey it to him. When the president decides that the operational definition of review means cancel, review of SHS, President Mahama says this, the president insists that review means cancel. I mean, obviously, you don't want to place it here, but it amounts to misinformation, disinformation. One of the solutions, we need to, and I think that between now to December 7, there's not very much that government can do. I leave it in the hands of civil society organizations. Civil society, I want you to look at what I will call an MDI, Misinformation Disinformation Index. Profile particularly all the major political actors. When they misinform, score them. And on weekly basis, tag them. And you can decide on a matrix that if maybe 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times, or 5 times, the person is branded as not credible to be listened to by the electorate, and make sure you push it. I'm taking your fact-checking a bit higher to the level of actually naming and shaming and making people stand out as people who have been objectively defined as misinformers or disinformers.
Brilliant suggestion indeed.
MDI can help.
Okay.
But as I come to the security, because they are right in form,
and very briefly,
right in front of us, briefly, we want symmetrical application of the law. Symmetrical application, even-handedness.
Okay.
So the index and symmetrical application of the law, and I believe that all others are going to be detailed.
Kofi,
thank you.
Kofi, just before you start, just a commitment because you are a politician. What about dismantling your army? Your army of social media trolls that they are deployed. We know they are there because we see the outcome of what they do. And you don't deny that they are there, do you? Whether you control the delivery or not. But I guess the commitment you hear that people want to, are you committed to dismantle them if they are there?
No, let me speak to the issues.
No, but that's one of the solutions. I'm taking solutions now.
No, but that's
a commitment from the parties. I'll come to all of you. A commitment from the parties.
That solution is an admission that we have set up a team to do that. We haven't done that.
Okay, so you haven't. Let's assume
and that's why I want to speak to what I want to say, and then you see exactly what our plans are.
For the party.
But first of all, I think it's important that when we discuss the solutions, we do so dispassionately. Because when we begin to cite instances that affect us and use that as the basis why one is doing it worse than the other, we won't get anywhere. Because I can equally sit here and cite so many examples of how my boss has been denigrated. In fact, your station did a story where a political party deliberately decided to tag him. Your station did it and found out that it was a machine to tag him.
So that is our attempt at dealing with the problem.
Exactly, but and
it was really down to what he said, calling them out, and we're doing fact checking.
No, but
so let's go to the solution.
The point that I want to make is important, Evans, is that let's discuss these
Let's do that. Let's take your
advice. And let's avoid
that.
all of these instances that affect us, because we can equally.
The thing is, everybody else here maybe have been a victim.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's go to solutions.
So let's do that. Now, when it comes to us, my boss, the leader of the MPP, has taken a clear stance on the issue that I am going to campaign on issues. So when you listen to his speech on February 7th, it stood on 3 legs. 1, what the government has done. 2, his contribution. And 3, his vision. And so as a campaign and the communications outfit led by my brother Miracles, what we've decided to do is to focus on these 3 thematic areas. So as you know, we've started a program called The Next Chapter. The next chapter looks at what we have done. What contributions His Excellency made. And then 3, what do we intend? Our solution is, first and foremost, focus on issues. Because when you focus on issues, you have very little time to do propaganda, which is using misinformation and disinformation to achieve. So we are focusing on the issues. Wherever he goes, he's focusing on the issues. So let's focus on issues as political party and as campaign. Let's make sure that where we err or we make errors, we come out and correct it and apologize. I have a very good example. Miracles made a post recently, about a few months ago. It was a video that he posted, and it turned out the video was deep fake. It was a distorted video of General Asiedu Nketia. He came out and apologized and said that this video was fake information. I apologize. So as political parties, part of the solution is owning up when we get it wrong and coming out to say that we put this information out, it was wrong, we apologize.
Kofi, thank you very much.
And these are
let me get Joyce's solutions. Joyce.
Well, thank you very much. I believe that Kofi started by saying he didn't want to personalize it, but of course, just like His Excellency did, it is apparent that he really wanted to personalize it and score some points for the New Patriotic Party. So for my part, let me quickly state, without any fear of contradiction, that when you did that program that you did to try and fact check, for example, I'm hoping that very soon you do likewise for the NDC also, for all the stories that were churned out by the New Patriotic Party that are certainly untruths and peddled just for propaganda value, etc. That is what fairness dictates. Secondly, if we want to talk about solutions and moving forward, of course, we have a fantastic program, the NDC 360. It puts out accurately what our messages are, what it is that we are campaigning on, what our manifesto policies are, and we do that and do it effectively. That is not what this platform is asking us for. What the platform is speaking to is where we have intentionally, deliberately sought to utilize tools of information to discredit, to generate opprobrium in a way that will have a negative impact on the upcoming election 2024. I still maintain that since you are the ones in government, the absolute responsibility rests entirely with you in government.
Any proposal?
If you set the ball rolling, I'm sure that everybody will follow. My proposal going forward is very simply this, that if we want to pass any other action plan, let it be a legislative instrument. There are many lawyers in this room, to the Right to Information Act. But anything coming from this cabinet, I completely disagree with. It will make no impact, it would have no solution, and certainly will only go to give credence to a certain perception that is out there. It is 7 years, 7 months too late. Secondly, if we want a solution, I believe that the media is the best place to find solutions. Fact check on everything we put out there. You have the resources, you have the capacity, you have the social media networks, you even control quite a number of the new media that the Gen Zs are very interested in, and that is where we do the most mischief. Let me throw the back to you in the media, that from here, you will start to fact check us all as we go along. Secondly, you also know that for whatever it is worth, I think that the governance institutions will still play a key role. I am also certain that the courts will certainly continue to play a very important role in the quick dispensation of some of these matters when they appear or go before the courts. Thirdly, I will expect that as we are fact-checking one another, let's remember that the best form of reducing all of these malicious things is respect for one another. And that will require enormous advocacy. So I'll land on the Bible verse from 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 16, where we had mothers living in the same compound. And when they woke up, one child was smothered, the other one was alive. King Solomon was faced with a very difficult choice to decide on who got the baby. One of them said, yes, bring a knife and divide that baby. The other one said, let's keep the baby. So the woman who cried for the living child was actually determined as the mother of that child. I will land on this one. With His Excellency the President, I hope he's listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen, your bulleted solutions as we wrap up from the NCCE.
Thank you very much. And I want to applaud the people who put this summit together for ensuring that we have important voices on the panel representing political parties, particularly as we go into the election. It's a great achievement. I think that the solution is multi-pronged, and we can't talk about one solution over the other. I want to highlight the role of media and media houses like yourself, who have over the years built credibility and public trust, to be extra careful not to abuse that trust by inadvertently going out there and becoming part of the problem by putting out things that are not properly verified. Because, you know, when the major media houses also tag onto information that is floating out there, it gives it a certain credibility that is now difficult to dismantle. So first, I want to say that one major solution is the media houses should take some responsibility and not see themselves as organizations that are set up as part of the governance structure. They are not just there to put out information, but it is important that the information you put out not only is true, but is also nation building in orientation. The other one, of course, which I cannot run away from, is investing in public education, and that the state should invest in public education to ensure that the consumer's part of this whole equation is also taken care of. Because if your fake news does not have impact because people are savvy in how they consume information, after a while you will stop. Because at the end of the day, and I'll use political parties because that is the season that we are in, political parties are looking for impact. They will not waste their time on unimpactful things. So if you invest in the public education so that people consume information in such a way that fake news, disinformation, misinformation fall on non-fertile ground, eventually, over time, it will not be profitable for parties who churn out this information to continue to do so. The last thing I'd like to see is to implore the parties. I know that the season has heated up and, you know, it's actually going to get hotter, and we are all in it. We are all victims. We are all running through. But I will implore the political parties to please have a Ghana first approach, because this election is more important than the others. Because as a country, we sit at a point where we are sitting in a war zone. The whole of the sub-region is now a war zone. And if we allow misinformation and disinformation to further deepen our divisions or the normal things that we do in elections, we will create space for external forces to take advantage and destabilize our country. What is happening in the sub-region and the threats that we face as a country because of that is very real, and we should not take it for granted. And misinformation, disinformation, fake news, these are real threats. These are tools that can be used to create complete mayhem. If that happens, all the other things that we do as we prepare towards the elections will come to naught.
Thank you very much. Estelle?
Yeah, thank you. So, my final words are really around just how difficult life is today for every Ghanaian, or the majority of Ghanaians. We see construction all around, so it looks like some people are doing okay. But for the majority of Ghanaians, for the majority of businesses, it is extremely difficult. And so what Ghanaians are looking for and what Ghanaians need is a leader that is going to be committed to our nation is going to do the right thing. Look, I've not yet been in governance. I don't want to be in politics. I would love to work for my nation. And so we're looking, I don't think it can be that different running a country as it is running a large company. I know I simplify things, right? So of course it's different, but people run large companies very successfully. We can run this nation very successfully so that everyone is provided for. And that's what Ghanaians need. And that is what I would encourage everyone running for these elections to focus on, telling us what you're actually going to do. Not big words. We love big words in Ghana, and that all shrouds the real things that are going on. Like, let's be committed to our nation. Let's build this nation. Everyone will be provided for. And if the right information is out there, and if it's exciting information that we all realize is going to benefit our pockets, I'm sure we will listen to that more than the fake news. I would very much discourage any kind of control of or blocking of access to sites, to information on the internet. That would be a major scar on us as a country and our democracy. And then lastly, just encouraging all of us as individuals to educate ourselves and to look for the real news that is out there. And as was mentioned by one person, just let's be respectful of each other, you know, and not just spread unnecessary negative news that is not helpful. Everything that's been said so far this morning seems to point to actually the politicians and the political parties perhaps being the worst perpetuators, I think that's the right word, of false news being spread. So if that is the truth, then I think they should take away the most today and stop what they're doing so we can focus on what we need to focus on, which is where our nation is and what needs to be done to save us.
Thank you very much. And the final word to you, Fatima, too. And I think it's clear that you need to reassure people to build a certain coalition around your action plan. What's the plan to do that, especially as cabinet finishes the process?
First of all, Evans, a few issues that have come up that I must respond.
But I've just been told again that I have this matter of 2 minutes to wrap this up.
First of all, when I spoke about the media stakeholders we met for validation, which you were there, it did not include political parties. That was for that specific event. But remember that on 19th October 2023, at the Accra International Conference Center, when we held engagement to get a communique on misinformation and disinformation, I remember, Kathy, I saw you on one of the panel. All the political parties were there. I did not see a rep from the NDC. I remember CPP, PNC, Chairman McMahon was there for the NPP and so on and so forth. But I cannot misinform you and say they were invited but did not attend. But a representation that seeks to suggest that there was no political participation at any point is inaccurate. Secondly, I'm the principal spokesperson for the president. So if a misinformation is attributed to him, I cannot leave the stage without correcting that impression. Dr. Omane Boama makes the context for that comment. The context is the fact that the former President John Dramani Mahama said Ghana should not implement free senior high school on the whimsical promises of a desperate politician. He further made another comment, said that 2 billion Ghana cedis just for free SHS is too much. Imperatively, it is only logical that if you say you will not spend that much to fund the policy, then you will crash it. There is no review upward without additional investment into the space. So I think for him to bring it up, it is only fair that the correction is made.
Let's end now with
yes. So now my final words. It's very important that I say that.
Yes.
So
this is about your final solution to build
final solution from us, from the part of government, we have provided the most solution when it comes to combating disinformation. I ran you through the legislations. All the legislations were passed under the leadership of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo Addo. Whether it is the RTI Act of 2019, whether it is the Cybersecurity Act of 2020, and we are committed to building consensus so that we have the proper legislative framework to work on the space.
Okay.
But we have also used proactive approaches where instead of monitoring and being reactive to how issues of cyber security is addressed. If you look at the proposed action plan, one of them is for us to reach out to the app developers and also look at the tools that they have available. About 2 weeks ago, I called for a meeting with Meta and the New Media Association for us to look at how best we can organize collectively, we can organize media literacy programs and also training for our social media influencers and bloggers. Quite recently, you saw a post I made with engagement from representatives from TikTok. So we are doing that review of legislation so that we have a proper legislative framework that you cannot escape.
Thank you very much.
Take it upon yourself to be an ambassador for this information.
Thank you very much.
And we are doing the most that we can at the ministry.
A big round of applause to my panelists. Kofi Tonto, political assistant, the Vice President, Kathleen Addy with the NCCE, Joyce Bar Mukhtari, spokesperson for the former President John Mahama, Fatima Tubakar, who just head the Information Minister, Dr. Addo Maniboama, who is the Director of Elections and ICT for the NDC. Estelle, thank you very much. A big round of applause for all of them, please, and enjoy the rest of the day. We're supposed to have a Q&A. That will come after the next session and the next panel. We'll put all that together. Israel.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Evans. So we're moving, and thank you to all the panelists for your wonderful insights. You're welcome. All right, we're moving straight on to the second panel. So I'm going to invite the second panel to move up. We have Nana Banamwa who will be moderating, and then Anas Aremio Anas, an investigative journalist, Dr. Albert Nchibwesiako, Director General Cybersecurity Authority, Ambassador Edward Boateng, founder, Global Media Alliance, Dr. Afel Moni, former President, Ghana Journalists Association, and Gayhard Mensah, CEO, Comscraft Consult. Can we please take your seats, and then I'm inviting the speaker for this session, Dr. George Akufo Addo, Inspector General of Police. A round of applause to him.
The King of Ghana State and our revered traditional and religious leaders. My father, the Honorable Minister for National Security and the National Security Coordinator. My sister, the Minister for Information, and my big brother, who was the first speaker, the former National Security Coordinator, and the team that also did justice to the first session, and more importantly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I might say that I'm starting this presentation very confused, in the sense that I think the first panel has done our job for us in terms of looking at the solutions that we're supposed to talk about. So I've been put in a very difficult situation to make a statement at all costs. So forgive me if I don't meet your expectations. But the point has been made clear. Misinformation, disinformation, they are national security threats. We should internalize that and do so with the speed of light. We shouldn't come and look at this as yet another conference, another summit, just to gather ideas and walk out. We should walk out of this place changed as people going out there to make a difference when it comes to fighting disinformation, misinformation. which in other words, in other environment called infodemics. It has the potency to render all of us homeless and countryless. We cannot afford that. We also know that when it comes to elections, the tension in the environment leads to a situation where these evil forces of our very survival becomes something that needs to be checked and checked immediately. What is important, as my big brother, the former National Security Coordinator, mentioned, is the fact that if we look at the principle of free speech and we are not careful to look at its limitations, we will end up taking no action when it comes to fighting misinformation and disinformation. Because anytime people do that and you raise the issue that you've gone beyond your free speech, and therefore what you have embarked upon are things beyond free speech that lead to a situation of a threat to national security and of course our very survival. You have people all over the place supporting such people and discouraging or disrespecting or attacking any decision that is taken to deal with them. So in one breath, we want to fight it. In another breath, if it comes up and is being fought, you have people attacking the people who are fighting it. So the question that I want to find out is that what do we want as a people? Do you want to be on the side of right, or do you want to be on the side of wrong? Or we are so confused that when it suits us, we decide where we want to be. We need to look at this and look at it carefully. Now coming back and looking at it from what we have seen, it is the realization that it is a whole of society problem, a whole of a community problem, a whole of a nation problem, and more importantly, a whole of global problem. So what does that mean? It means that we need everybody to be part of the solution and not to look at the issue as something meant for somebody else to deal with, which has become something that we are so fond of. For instance, we may be traveling, we use the same road, and there could be a stone or a piece of wood on that stretch of the road. All of us will find ways of making sure that we divert our course and have a safe journey on, while still leaving that piece of wood on the road, thinking that it is somebody's responsibility and not mine. So we are all in it together, and we have to live here with that consciousness. The second point is the fact that the time has come for us to have a mindset change. All the things that we have said so far, all the deliberations that have gone on, what is missing is our commitment to have a mindset change. Why am I saying so? We are all human beings with humanity at our heart, as we so say. Humanity in the form of being brotherly, showing empathy towards each other. But how have we been able to practicalize this? The story is different. We have become so inhumane towards each other. And at times I ask myself, to what extent? And where are we taking all of this to? Such that Our joy, our happiness is derived from the pain of others. We are so happy when somebody is in a very bad situation, and I don't understand. So when something bad is being said about somebody, about a society, about a tribe, about a country, then we carry it along, we spread it around with joy, such that in the professional environment, they say, when it breathes, it leads. In effect, bad news is my good news. How serious are we? Bad news is my good news. So until we live here with a mindset that somebody's pain is my pain, because that person is a human being like me. A society's problem is my problem because I'm part of the society. We will not be making conscious and committed effort towards addressing the issue of disinformation and misinformation. It has to come out of the heart, not out of the mind. So looking at some specifics, the first point of call, which has been properly addressed by my colleagues and friend Evans Mensah when he was talking about the production of the manufacturing unit of such misinformation and disinformation. And the sponsors, both financial influence and others, of such people. Let's deal with them in two ways. Through the principle of moral persuasion. Because some of them may not know. They are just being used for the parochial, limited interest of an individual, a group, and therefore they just carry along and run with it. Persuasion will help some of them to get out of the trouble, even including some of the sponsors of these activities, when their conscience are pricked to the fact that why do you allow a personal, limited interest to override a national interest? Because your personal interest, when it survives and the national interest collapses, you have no interest. And if they fail, through the art of persuasion, work with us to use the full force of the law to deal with them. Because such people, God will be happy for them not to live among us than to be among us and destroy all of us. Then the next leg, which I've always referred to in the 1990s through an advert on newspaper, adverts on TV when we were growing up. They say, water no get leg. If the PVC pipe, they carry on. The manufacturers of this fake news, when it becomes a product, it has no leg to go to the market. We become the PVC pipes that carry it to the level that it becomes spread and it goes viral. So we need to look at ourselves and see that if there is a fake news, disinformation, misinformation, and it is spreading all over the place, we are responsible. So if we are responsible, how do we deal with it? And that brings to the fore the concept of critical thinking. 4 key layers. The first point is that it is noted that sharing is caring. But when it comes to misinformation and disinformation, sharing is not caring as soon as you receive it. Sharing becomes caring when you have processed that information, repackage it in a manner that will bring hope to people than to cause mayhem. So what do? You receive information, assess it, and if you are not sure, there are always sources that you can cross-check to find out whether that information contains potency. And if it does not, you still have a responsibility to share it, but not the nature that it came. And how do you do that? For instance, there is misinformation or disinformation to the effect that there is an accident on the Accra-Kumasi road around Eastern region. 50 people have passed on, some legs amputated, people are trapped in the vehicle, and confusion all over the place. You happen to be one of the few people to receive it first. What do you do with it? After processing and checking and finding out that it is not correct, repackaging it to a colleague, a friend, will simply be, there is some rumors that the accident has happened, there's the possibilities that some people have been killed and all that. It's not true, so if you hear it, disregard it. But you convey the same raw fact to the person, and so they get into the tail and you pass a message to the say that you heard that all that is not true. By the time he got to that point, he has already finished processing it, and at times emotion alone will not even let him or her get to the point that you are drawing attention. So even repackaging it makes the difference. You still have to share it, and it is that point that sharing becomes caring. And even when the information comes to you, and after assessing and analyzing it, it happens to be the truth, then it takes away from the issue of misinformation and disinformation to rare information. And even sharing rare information in a true factual sense, it is so not appropriate when you don't apply wisdom. That's why our forefathers will forever be grateful to them when it comes to how they convey factual bad information to us. A very simple example. You may have an instance that you've lost a dear one. It happens around 11 a.m. And everybody knows that 11 a.m. you need to get into midday, have lunch. Later in the evening, you have dinner. You wait and say, oh, the situation is critical. They start walking you gradually into it. The situation is critical. We are trusting God, even though he died some 2-3 hours ago. Oh, find something to eat. You are encouraged, you have eaten. Take some rest. Let's take a walk. After that, they wait for you to have dinner. And when all is settled and sufficient family people are there as a support system, the information is conveyed to you in a manner that after receiving it, you are comforted to the level that you are able to accommodate it. So let's think about this. Then if we are unsuccessful in trying to stop it from spreading, and it does spread, what do? We have a responsibility, if we have been successful in making the information spread, when it is disinformation and misinformation, by just testing it around. Then when it becomes known and we are debunking it, let us use the same force or double of that we used to be sharing. Now that we are no more going to do, we should rather spend that energy fighting and debunking disinformation and misinformation. Because in a society that good people fail to act, bad people act for you, and the consequences are shared by all. Now, looking at all this, let's probably look for 3 minutes, 2 minutes on the issue of institutional responsibilities. First, institutions that has responsibility to share information to the public for us to consume in order to be informed need to be proactive. Information space is synonymous to having an empty chair. If there are people wanting a place to sit, they will sit on it. So if you have the right information and you don't go there and sit on it, every information is welcome to sit on that chair. And when it comes, unless it's a family relationship, you cannot sit on the person because that would be offensive. So our proactiveness towards sharing information and engaging will make these people redundant such that they will not win. And again, when it becomes necessary that something has gone out, as an institution, as entities responsible, we should make sure that we give the information out, the form of debunking, as soon as possible, so that the people who have the capacity will carry it and carry with that. Now let me look at the press briefly, the media. The media, our fourth estate of the realm, have a powerful role to play. Use your informing and educating responsibility or functions to get us educated, for us to be media literate, and for us to be able to know what misinformation and these things are, and for us to stay alert. At the same time, use your gatekeeper responsibility or role to ensure that you check what goes out and help us not to consume what we need to consume. And here we may be talking of clickbait, where everybody wants to make sensational headlines so that it will attract people to those locations. And also we should check our breaking news journalism, which takes us wanting to be the first to share the news without doing proper cross-checking. It hurts. And more importantly, when the manufacturers and their supporters do it, after persuading them to not to do it, and they do it, and the forces of the criminal justice system get to them, support us, don't fight us. Now let's look at civil society. What a powerful tool in our governance structure. If it was left to me alone, if the fourth estate has been given to the media, let's give the fifth estate to civil society. But the sad thing is that I've seen that the non-traditional media still want to claim the fifth estate, so that the media alone will have two estates, the fourth and the fifth. I think one thing we can come out from this as a suggestion is to try and promote civil society, because of the wonderful job they are doing, the role they can play in partnership with all of us in dealing with this menace. So I'll call them the status of the fifth estate, so that if from first to fifth we all pull ourselves together, we'll make a difference. So that they could be on us, all the institutions, to force us to act proactively, get information from us and share it across, because they are trusted and believe in the communities they serve. Now looking at it from the political parties, a lot has been said already, so I'm not going to the place. But the fundamental point is that as political parties and the individuals standing for elections at various levels, remember this: you are all just potential employees wanting to work for us. So as you come and apply, and the positions are limited, you should measure your expectations such that it doesn't become a do and die affair. Because if you don't do it today, that's God's will. It will be tomorrow. So let's be very measured when it comes to that. That's a little I want to add to that political bit. Now let's look at the criminal justice system. We are grateful for all the comments, constructive criticisms that have come to us this morning. I want to assure you, in our quest to becoming the best institution in the country and a reference point for the rest of Africa and beyond, we accommodate that ugly, because we feel that it will take only that for us to become better. So we take all of them in good faith, and we work on them, and we'll make sure that we'll continue to do the job in a way that will win your hearts and minds. And finally, as my colleagues and moderator are already seated, I want to say, we the people. We the people, let us support every system, every structure, as long as the actions being taken are in our interest and the interest of humanity. And let's be less divided when it comes to fighting a common enemy. Other than that, we'll always come back and be talking about the same issue with no solution, no progress. So in conclusion, Honorable Minister, the Chief, the King of the Ghana State, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is my country, the only one I have. This is your country, the only one you will ever have. This is our country, our birthplace. Where else do you want us to go if we don't find ways of coexisting peacefully? I thank you very much.
Thank you to Mr. IJP. Indeed, this is our country, and it's the only one that we have. King Taki Teko Chu II. Ufaneke Iesha family. Iton, he would want to take leave, and we want to say thank you to him for making the time to sit through the sessions up to now. May we please rise as he exits. Akeshin Unabe Ubafita Waye.
abusua gamanche na make say wono so eja eho na wakọ no summit no eguso ha eto aso but gamanche na ho bambo hey very key into no sa strafo eka ho wani omo enam babibia omoko babia no abusua ha Ghana News TV so meso se ndi di kan ba ha no subscribe no wa share dia mame na meka wo say ANS Trading Agency ANS Trading Agency na so masene a video e matimi e twade abro so wo niema e wa kwantuo mu e wa brochi se wo bi wo Ghana ha na wo se kwa brochi na se wa brochi no so e ba o ma Ghana mu no misro se bo modern na free ANS Trading Agency na mo nje mfa nkoma we no e ka no anya ka bia enso niema no bedu asomdwe mu sanso na se wo sika e wo ma Ghana mu na abaso de kwa brochi a ofro mo mbedi ho dwuma sanso na se wo bi nso e wa brochi na opese emra o ma Ghana mu a any currency no ombeji no mde akọ ama ha Ghana News TV so medina na se fine bobo na meka wo se abiexpress.com na aso ya sene a ama ya de sa video ya bro Mr. se wo akwantum na se o pese wonto enioma ye Ghana enioma before entade ne ade ya ne nyina no woko abiexpress.com abenya bi na wato ho na won deliver e de amount.
Okay. And DHI Patu, like. Nice. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, let's go to the last gentleman. What's your name?
My name is Jerome James Inso. Okay.
Sorry?
Jerome James Inso.
All right. So you wake up tomorrow, you're on a bus going to work to school, and then you see a publication on Facebook. IGP says that on December 7, if you don't have your Ghana card, no, let me change the story. That one is too real. Okay, IGP says that on December 7, forget Ghana card, go with your passport and vote, and nobody can do anything to you. How would you know the story is fake or true?
First of all, if the story is on Twitter, what I'll do first is I'll watch the number of people who have retweeted and the comments under. After that, now Ghana police has a lot of, you can get it. They are on Instagram, they are on Twitter, and they have a TV station. So that's where you would get, and most of all, you go to TV to enjoy news.
Okay.
But the truth is that 90% of the youth, we don't care about the truth of the message.
Why?
Because it's the fooling aspect for the youth. They want to go and retweet and misbehave. That is the truth.
You like to misbehave.
They want to go and retweet and they see, laugh and create jokes about the whole story. So I was wondering why they were not trying to be frank with the elderly people in the room. Because if they will never read the whole page, they will go and look for as he said, the bloggers, those who are making fun of the message, and that's where we normally get whether because someone would let you know that it's serious on Twitter before you even go and look for the whole statement to read.
Okay, but you've been listening to all the speakers this morning. Do you feel their messages really targeted you, young people between 18 and 25? Are you going away positively impacted to do better in analyzing information? I'll start with you, Mr. Misbehavior.
I'm not sure they really targeted us.
They didn't target you? No. Who do you think they targeted?
I think they were looking at the latter, as in the early ones, because if you want to target us, that means you'd find a way of making sure that the social media platforms that we use very well would, as one of the speakers were saying, would in the first place, like Twitter, because immediately someone would put any silly message on Twitter, because the message is silly, within 30 seconds you see over 1,500 tweeting about it.
But if the police service decided to come in and clamp down, you start shouting freedom of speech, wouldn't you?
No, it's not all the time we shout freedom of speech. Sometimes if someone misbehaves, we don't support them.
Okay, all right. What about you, Sharita? Did the message connect with you?
For me, yes, I would say it has connected with me because disseminating bad information about something is very bad, which I would like everyone to take this serious and take into consideration.
Okay, Joanna?
Okay, personally, I think that
they address the entire country, the larger platform, and I think that especially Dr. Dampari, he said something that we are all in the nation. So if anything bad happens, children, adults, women, young children, we are all gathered and we are all in the country. So it was addressed to all of us. Thank you.
And finally, Titus.
Thank you very much, Nana. If you heard the IGP's talking, he said it's his country, it's our country, and it's your country. And so the messages targeted each and every individual in the country, and I think it is high we preach media and information literacy for people to stop practicing disinformation, malinformation, and misinformation. Thank you.
Please give it up for these young people. Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Young people, please stop misbehaving, okay? When you see the stories, check, cross-check. Don't be in a hurry to retweet, like, repost, and share. Anyway, so our job has just started, and our theme is... All right, so strategies to combat disinformation. That is what we are going to focus on. I'll quickly introduce my panelists to you. Some of them are very familiar faces and need no introduction, but I will still do it anyway. I'll start with Ambassador Edward Boateng. Ambassador Edward Boateng, of course, is the founder of Global Media Alliance, and his extensive experience in media and communications will come to bear in this conversation. Also with us this afternoon is Dr. Afel-Mami, the former president of the Ghana Journalists Association. So it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, Mama.
All right, and we also have with us here Gerhard Mensah is the CEO of Comscraft Consult. They provide strategic communication, and hopefully we'll have some insights from you on this topic. John Tanda is here. John is a director of cyberspace and information assurance. He'll be telling us exactly what cyberspace and information assurance is all about. And the last guest, he's getting his microphone fixed, is Maximus Kweku Ametogo. He's a digital marketer, social media coach, content marketer, and analytics specialist. Thank you all for joining us as we await Maximus to join us in a bit. Now, earlier, Joyce and her colleagues tried to find solutions to this canker that we have been experiencing over time. I'm going to start with you, Ambassador Edward Boateng. You have founded a media conglomerate and you do extensive work, communications work. How often do people approach you to make a bad story go away? Because that's really your stock in trade. You make sure the right thing happens, the right thing is published. How do you assure that? How do you do that? How often do these people come to you?
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Rashida and the team that put this program together. I think it's timely and apt. I think there are two sides. When people come to me to make a bad story go away, that is PR. We have to be very clear. As a public relations person, it's your job to make sure that you can smoothen the edges. But if you put on your journalistic hat, it's not the job of a journalist to make the story go away. Your responsibility is to make sure that you convey the story as it is. But then there is a gray area there. The question of as it is. That's where misinformation and disinformation all come in. I must say that I'm not as pessimistic as maybe the whole topic has been made to look like. In the sense that the world is changing. This conversation or similar conversations were had in the early 90s when news was changing.
The news we're talking about today, when we talk about verification, check your facts, is the news of 1960, 1970, the 1980s. News was at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock in most countries. Then Tetena decided to change it, because he also felt at that time that it was misinformation and disinformation.
And I was there at that time, so these conversations were taking place at that time. There was a big fear, especially amongst Washington elite at that time. And the question was, how do you... But as Estelle said, technology had opened that space. Intelsat and the satellite companies had made the medium available, so we could sit in Atlanta and transmit news straight to Accra. Equally, we decided that, okay, there has to be a back reverse. Accra should be able to transmit directly to Washington. Trust me, the leaders at that time were very fearful. But today, would we say that 24-hour news is a bad thing? I don't think so. It's the same thing. News went from the big TV box to our phones. Now the question is, how do we manage it? Because if you try to control it, which is what a lot of, or some of the speakers have been talking about, then we are reversing the whole trend. But to be able to manage it, we should have institutions that work. We are having a lot of disinformation because people can get away with it. In a lot of countries, they have the same platforms that we have. But why don't they have this level of disinformation? Because there are consequences for your actions. And in any society where there are no consequences for actions, we have the sort of problems that we have.
What sort of consequences are you talking about?
I mean, if I say something about you, Nanaba, that is not true. And there's a judicial system that has speed that will make sure that I suffer for it. I'm sure Gehat will be wary next time they are talking about somebody. But in our society, invariably, we get away with it. So we talked about the judiciary. A leadership has left. But if people have confidence in the judicial system, it will be different. If people have confidence in our police system, it will be different. So I think sometimes we shouldn't narrow this thing as if we are the only ones suffering it. We've just seen what has happened in Kenya. A whole government was dismembered. A whole government was dismembered. And we saw even in controlled environments like China, the president had to backtrack 3 years ago because you cannot control the information. But where the institutions work, your reaction time could and should be faster. So I think for me as a solution, we should be looking at how do we make sure that the institutions that have to be in the forefront of these things work and are able to react very swiftly.
Okay. Let me come to you, Afel Moni. He makes a very important comment about 24-hour news, and we're seeing that a lot in Ghana, even when the media houses are not operating 24 hours. But on social media, they're active every second of the day or night. For journalists, for the traditional journalists, you want to be the first person breaking the news. For non-traditional media, for social media as well, if you're a blogger who's known or you're starting, you also want to be the first to share the news. So there is somewhat a competition between traditional media and new media. As president, former president of the GJA, what did your institution do to stem the tide of journalists and citizen journalists breaking stories that are not verified first before they go out, and before you know, it turns out to be fake news? Is there any training?
Let me first of all
join the chorus of commendation for Rashida, who was my small girl at GBC when she was on national service. She's now a very big girl. I cannot tackle. I also commend the IGP, who has qualified to be associate professor at any journalism institution. He's made the job so simple. He touched on the foundational principles of our profession: gatekeeping, truth, the keps to freedom. Freedom is the oxygen of our profession. But freedom anywhere has no absolute value. But this is the point journalists miss. Back to your question, many years ago, about 300 years ago, the famous American journalist and publisher, Pulitzer, made a statement which said a huge controversy, and that statement was that journalists are educated and not born. And Pulitzer was pelted with all kinds of verbal stones for making that statement, because in those days, journalists were trained by osmosis, or they were trained on the job. They didn't have many of the structured institutions we have today. 300 years on, the complexities, the ethical misconduct, the perpetration of mendacity, the promotion of mediocrity have all vindicated the rectitude of the statement. GJA believes that journalists should be trained. I believe this is a principle I've held so highly during my presidency, because we do not know it all. Our all-knowing pretensions have no basis. And because we have unfettered access to the microphone, because we have unlimited access to newsprint, sometimes we can spew whatever we want. But the fact is that we do not know it all. So this reinforces the need for us.
Let me cut in there.
Yeah.
So the GJA really is not a regulatory body.
Sure.
But you're there for a reason.
Yeah.
And if indeed journalists sit on the radio and TV and spew absolute nonsense, what does the GJA do to that journalist and the media house, knowing that you are not a regulatory body? But how do you come in, knowing that you are an association? And it's happened in the past, it's still happening, it will happen tomorrow. How does the GJA ensure sanity in the media space?
Ethical standards, we believe that, are not product of happenstance. Ethical standards are the fruit of training. So the more we capacitate journalists, the more they imbibe ethical standards, the more they internalize ethical standards and reflect same in whatever they do. So training is of utmost importance. Okay. Training has no substitute at all. Okay. But what do you see? Because of the freedom to practice journalism, Article 19 or the investor right, human right, offers anybody at all to receive and disseminate information. But training is of utmost importance. Some are lavishly gifted with linguistic mastery. Some are gifted with literary embroidery. They can write. Superb penmanship they can display. Okay. Some can also they can, proverbs, they can put them together 1,000 within one second. Right. But all this does not make you a quality journalist. You need to be capacitated. So this is the emphasis we place on. And we also have a code of ethics. It is our professional Bible or Quran. So every journalist is supposed to, first of all, internalize this code of ethics and also reflect.
You 100% believe that every journalist has this code of ethics?
That is the ideal situation, but the reality is that...
Are there any journalists in this building? Where are your codes of conduct? Do you have any? Vanessa and Co. I'm sure they haven't seen one in a while. Gerhard, I'm coming to you as a communications consultant and strategist. He talks about training, which is very important, and he says it cannot be replaced, which is absolutely true. Do you feel that when you're listening to the morning shows in the morning, especially on the local speaking radio stations? Do you feel it?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nanaba. Let me first let something off my chest, and then I'll come to your question.
Free your chest.
We are all Ghanaians. We would want to do whatever is possible to curb fake news. It doesn't help anybody, doesn't help society, doesn't help build democracy. However, in that effort, the police, the security agencies have no responsibility or right in arresting anybody for fake news. They don't. They don't because fake news in itself is an exercise in free expression. And
Can you educate us more?
Arresting somebody for fake news is an arrest of our freedoms, of our constitution.
I wake up tomorrow morning and I write, Gehat Mensah is impotent. And you are not impotent. And this story goes viral, wild. You're saying that the impact it has on you mentally, the impact it has on you business-wise, financially, all of that should be neglected because the police has no right to arrest me for starting such a wild
There are
fake
enough
story.
processes and institutions that have been set up to deal with situations like
Walk us through it.
That is why we have the National Media Commission. And so when there is news about you that you think is unfair, you recourse to the National Media Commission. Don't forget that the security agencies, unfortunately, in this part of the country, have become an agent of the government. And so I get up, I call the IGP because I'm a minister. Afel Money has published fake news about me, and then he gets arrested. I am not saying that there should be no sanctions for fake news.
Okay.
I am talking about a process. And that process does not lie in the police getting up at times without any complaint and arresting journalists for fake news.
Okay.
That is the point I want to make.
When was the last time this happened?
Oh,
I'm
it
trying
happened,
to-
I think, 2 years ago, and questions were being asked. Who was the complainant? Who was the complainant? We didn't hear about any complainant. The police, out of its own volition and power, arrested a journalist for fake news. It is wrong. It shouldn't happen.
Was the story fake?
I am not talking about whether it was fake or not. I am talking about the process.
Okay, all right.
In as much as we all want to defend Ghana, we must be careful about the processes we adopt. Don't forget, there are tyrannies. There are tyrannical leaders, there are autocratic leaders. If we don't sanitize the process and leave it open so that anybody at all can get up and arrest a journalist for fake news. Who said the news was fake?
Well, if the news is fake, it is fake.
How did the police know that the news is fake? Because I complained. And that is why we have the National Media Commission. I'm talking about process.
Okay, but again, there has been debates, arguments about the potency of the National Media Commission. Again, it's a commission and not an authority. So its work is somewhat limited. But I'd like to bring in the IGP because you mentioned him and I think that he must respond. Pardon me for circumventing the process, but I like circumvention. Okay.
Thank you, Nanaba. I think I think let our Ghanaianness be fully displayed in this contest. We started off by saying that it is not an avenue for scoring points and making accusations and counter-accusations, more so when they have no foundation, like has just been put out there by my brother, because he's a Ghanaian and it's around my age, he's a brother. The point is simple. Police have not arrested anybody for fake news. What we are talking about is that there is a law that says that if you go out there and start putting things out there, that has the potency of bringing the security of the states into disrepute to a level that it will create confusion and for our very survival to be destroyed, we will deal with you. Simple. It's as simple as that. So please, don't let us come out with sensation. You are looking at a pure case of clickbait. That is what you are just saying. But police have arrested people for fake news. You click on it and there's nothing like that. That's clickbait. Please, let us focus on the issue of finding solution to where the issues at stake and start creating confusion in the midst of a peaceful environment where minds are at work finding solutions to problems. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The IGP has spoken.
Now, let me go to the question you asked.
Absolutely.
If I had known this issue will have come up, I would have bring the specifics because it was published.
But
somebody was arrested. But let's leave it as it is.
Let's leave it.
And
yes.
let's proceed. My only point was that there are freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, and in our urge to protect national security, we should not infringe on that freedom.
But your freedom ends where another
there is
freedom
responsibility,
starts. Yeah.
and the responsibility exists in institutions and processes that have been set up.
All right,
What
back to
do
my
I
question.
feel now watching television and listening to radio hosts in terms of the handling of fake news? I think that fake news has become a feature of our journalism, which is bad.
How
It doesn't
so?
help. It doesn't help anybody. It creates impressions that do not exist. And we must find a way of combating it. There's no two ways about it. But we have to go through it the hard way, not the easy way. Now, when I listen to television hosts and I listen to radio hosts today, I think there is a great effort to find a way between which news is genuine and which news is fake. And so to the extent that radio and television is concerned, I think a lot of effort is being made. I hear people being asked, what is the source of information? Can you provide evidence? Can you provide documentary evidence? So that one, I think, is being managed.
Okay.
My brother spoke about, or you raised the issue about PR and trying to make organizations look good. I just want to add that the responsibility of PR is not to make institutions look good instantaneously when they are not really good.
Okay.
It's about building the buffer over a period of time. It's about creating the situation that will ensure that even when negativities arise, there are enough positivities to absorb the negativities. But not just to go out and when there's a bad story, then your responsibility is make the bad story look good. That isn't how it
All right,
works.
let me bring you in John. John, you are from Cyberspace and Information Assurance. What's information assurance?
Okay, so thank you, Nana. But before let me just correct a little misinformation.
Okay.
It's actually a directorate under the National Signals Bureau.
Right.
So officially, we can have misinformation as well, which is not intentional.
So Cyberspace and Information Assurance is under the National Signals Bureau.
Yes,
So you are
that's
not an independent.
No.
Okay. Thank you for informing me. All right. Now, we are talking about strategies to combat disinformation in the digital space. When we're listening to the young people, one of them said something quite profound and unfortunate, that when you see a story, to assess if the story is true or false, you see the number of comments, the number of likes and reposts. And that for them somewhat suggests that the story is true. You are directly working in the digital space. How do we combat this problem?
Okay, thank you very much. It's a bit unfortunate, but the situation he said is also real. I'm not sure he was telling lies. Back in the days, let me shift you a bit. If you listen to radio, GTV, you read something in the newspaper, you can take it as gospel truth. There is no way for you to go and even verify because you trust that the system would have verified. But now we live in a digital space where people want to make news for their own reasons. Normally when it comes to these clicks and likes is for monetary terms. People want to trend to be popular. People have role models, or sorry to say, celebrities, that anything that they come out to say is assumed to be true. Okay. I think the problem there is people taking social media and assuming that credibility it had those days that we had the print media and the television stations. To curb that, we need agencies on the ground who also monitor this social media spaces. We need people like our IGP, Dr. Dan Paris said, if you see information that is not true, you owe it as a responsibility to also push that information. So if we have media houses, if we have citizens as a whole, also liking information that is true, also retweeting information that debunks those false information, we will be getting somewhere with it. So that,
All right.
I think that's one approach to use.
Thank you very much. And I don't know if you remember, but recently, this one was not misinformation. Disinformation properly, Chef Smith. Let me bring in Max. And in fact, all the media houses had that headline, almost even some international media houses were misled as well. They had that bold headline. Anyway, so Maximus,
Yes.
we're here discussing how to combat such disinformation.
Right.
How do we do it in a digital era, in the digital space?
I think first of all, you have to look at the source. Who produced it? Now, in the age of the digital media, what we are doing is that we've flipped the web to the consumers. So now we have a consumer producer audience, especially for social media. So when you have information in this raw form, we want to package it in our own opinions. And that's why we either misinform or disinform. So the first thing is look at the producer of the content. Who is producing that content? Very important. Then the platform that they are even distributing the content on. You need to look at how credible that platform is. The challenge with social media is that they tell you all the content that you distribute on their platform belongs to you. So you are the ones creating the content and you have the right to that content. Now, because we also consume it, as audience, if we don't check who is producing it to know even their background and the fact that even they have access to, credible data or information that they are pushing, then we will fall prey to distributing it. So we just be clicking, retweeting, sharing, embedding it on our website and all that. So we need to look at that. Then you need to look at the purpose. Why are they sharing this particular content? Why would we want to share any content about my brother being impotent? That the IGP won't come.
I believe I use that
the IGP won't come after you, right? What is the intention behind that? So if I want to misinform or disinform, there's a reason why I'm doing that, right? Is it for my personal benefit? If I want more people to click on my links so that I can get more views and then monetize my channel, you need to also know that. Then you need to know your peers. Who are you following? Now, if every time somebody is sharing, there's a link, a snake has given birth to a baby with 8 heads, and you want to click on it. Those are the baits that it starts with. Then we just click on it, somebody gets access to your information, or somebody, gets access to your account. And that's why people use a lot of fake news links to get us, or disinformation links to get access to our devices and all that. So we need to look at the peers, those who are conversing with and all that. Then policies of the platforms, Facebook policies, Twitter policies, and all that. And I think at the higher level, governments need to also look at some of these platforms. At times, you report particular content that is fake, and they will tell you they've reviewed it, they didn't say anything wrong with it, and they didn't pull it down.
Absolutely.
Some countries, they should take those platforms on so that they make sure that fake news, when it's reported, is either reduced in terms of the reach it gets, or is flagged, and there should be a place where I can go and verify information about my country or anything that is said about the particular country. We don't have that. So they automate a lot of the reviews, and some of these fake news are left to trend.
And because they build algorithm around how content is distributed, instead of traditionally we distribute the content or look for the content, social media, the content finds you. So if they don't tweak the algorithm to be able to fight fake news, the more people click, the more people share, the more people comment on it, the wider it trends. So those are the things that we need to look at for. And I agree that we need policing. Punishment, policing is very important. If you churn out fake news, the police will come after you.
Okay. And since the IGP is here, I'd like to say to the IGP that I think I'm one of the journalists, probably the only journalist who gets faked all the time on social media. There's always some story about me. And I have gone to the cybersecurity office so many times. Now I'm fed up of going there because nothing really happens. So I'm coming to Ambassador Boateng. How do we continue to have confidence in the police? Because someone like me has just decided that I give up. I am not going to cybersecurity again because I've been to cybersecurity more than 20 times. About stories people are churning out about me, and these people are there. You know where they are. I've given information, their numbers, where they live, and nothing has happened to them. So I have decided I won't go to cybersecurity again. Because nobody really cares what happens to my reputation, to me. But the IGP this morning is reminding us that the police is determined to do its work and crack the whip on misinformation and disinformation. For you as a media man, and I'm sure you've also bore the brunt of fake news before, especially when you were in China as our ambassador, how do we continue to remain confident in the police despite what we do not get?
I think it's not only the police. I mean, just the IGP is here, so
yes.
But it's not only the police.
He's a good uncle. He's a good uncle.
No.
I will let you respond to that.
We need to strengthen all our media, all our institutions, whether it's the Electoral Commission, the judiciary, because when people have confidence in the institutions of state and they go to them, they expect certain results. For instance, you give the example of cybersecurity. I think it's something that we need to pick up. Why are they not pursuing your concern? Now, if it's within their domain, we need to know. If it's a National Media Commission, we need to know. They need to be strengthened. Because all these countries that work, it's because the institutions work. It's not about individuals. I think where the police come in is where the security of the state is threatened. And I think that that is paramount to anybody's personal liberties. We have to be very, very clear on that. Whether it's in the US or UK or any country, the state is paramount. And therefore, when you start churning out information that is tantamount to bringing chaos, it's the duty of the law enforcement agencies to arrest that. But it's not the duty of law enforcement agencies when it's an individual. There, the processes have to work. The processes have to work. And I think that's where we have a challenge in our country. And for me, I always go back to making sure that our institutions are strengthened and our institutions work. If our institutions are working, a lot of these processes will resolve themselves. That's how I see it.
Okay, we have to wrap up shortly. I'll just take brief comments from you. Dr. Afel Moni, should collaborations or will media collaborations deal with this problem? If we put competition aside and EIB decides to collaborate with Media General and Multimedia, the City Group, will these collaborations make any impact? Should they be happening?
Certainly, yes. First of all, we need to see the upcoming elections as a national test. We should not, we cannot, and we dare not fail. Because the flip side would be a disaster of incalculable dimensions. So as a media community, ours is to join forces with the police, with cybersecurity, with ourselves, and see the election as a national project. We journalists, you can count on them to vote wisely. But this is not a time for you to allow your voting patterns to dictate how you do your work. Okay. We ought to go into this election to ensure that we show fidelity to the principles which underpin our profession.
Okay.
Number one is truth, verification. We are trained to doubt. So this is a time to shine the light on curiosity and skepticism. This will enable us to verify every piece of information.
All right.
To ensure that we feed the people with nothing but the truth.
Okay. Gehat, you listened to the Minister of Information earlier on Evans's plenary discussion. Do you feel from her utterances that there is enough strategy to stem the tide of disinformation going into the elections?
There is a lot more that can be done. It calls for a concerted action. Government has a role in that. Government's role is to support professionalism in journalism. Media industry, they have a role in that. What do we do in terms of giving attestation to stories that are genuine? What do we do with crowdsourcing if we want to attest our stories? What do we do with developing our professionals? Tech companies, tech companies together with to invest in tools that would help us identify fake news as early as possible. With AI and generative AI at the level at which they are currently, coming out with those tools that can identify fake news should not be a challenge. Then we as members of the public have a responsibility in that. We should be skeptical about the things that we read. We shouldn't believe everything that we read. We should ask for the sources. Where are these coming from? And if we have challenges, we should ask questions about these stories. Then organizations, every organization has a role in this. Organizations should be able to set up those alerts on their technology platforms that will alert them anytime there is any fake news about what they do. So it is
That's a huge investment.
Of course, it's a concerted action because, look, fake news is a multi-billion-dollar industry. However, its impact on democracy and governance is dire, and we need to invest in order to ensure that we sustain our democracy and that we sanitize the media environment and we restore trust and public confidence in communication and in journalism.
And in the police. I'm very confident in that.
I really had that.
I am. John, your last words before we wrap up.
I think misinformation is something that will be on the rise. And as you said, agencies, individuals need to collaborate more. When it comes to cyberspace, we don't have offenders working alone. It's a collaborative effort. And our Honorable Minister of National Security has said it. When it comes to national security, it's a collaborative approach. So we all need to come on to help curb this misinformation and disinformation.
Okay. Maximus.
Yeah, so
Your
I'll say
last
that
word.
let's check the source. Where is it coming from and what is the intention behind it?
Okay.
Yeah.
The source, very important. I'll call on the IGP now. Okay, the IGP does not want to speak again. And so I have to say thank you to the 5 gentlemen here for joining us for this discussion. I hope that you have taken a thing or two from this conversation. And please, just be mindful where you get your source from and verify. It's always good to do independent work, independent verification. Thank you very much. My name is Nana Banamwa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Nanaba and your panelists, for the very interesting conversations. If there any questions, few questions, we can take a few questions. If you have any questions at all, otherwise we'll just have to, there's some, okay. So can we take 1, 2, and 3? take these 3 questions.
My name is Kingsley Asensubidiako, Consensus in for Ghana and then my community. My question is that we say right, isn't it? Human right means do the right thing. And if the person didn't do the right thing, excuse me to say, bringing something into the news, right, which is wrong. I think last week, I saw something in the news. If I didn't win, there will be a war or a coup. I think it came to one of the private papers. And go and stay at the radio station. You just voice it out. The police service, the security service have right to arrest you. So if it's a human right, do the right thing and be free. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So yours is more of an admonition.
Good afternoon, Ghana. I would like to ask, with the inception of social media is the first-hand information that we do because we are glued to our phones, and it's the first-hand information that we get. How do we get to decide that this is a credible news that we are getting? Because first-hand information, probably I didn't even watch the TV. So a blogger will blog, an influencer will say it. How do I get to know that this is a credible news that I should trust? Is there an AI that can streamline false news concerning the governance, politics, where this country is actually heading to? My simple question. Thank you.
Okay, so my simple answer to you is you just have to turn to credible news sites. And you know the credible news sites. So if we can stick to the credible news sites, you know that you're going to get credible information. Because it's not every information at all that's out there that you can rely on. And I think that should answer your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jackie Manning from Migration to Ghana. To the point of credible news sources, I think there should be social media influencers that also are credited as well, because as majority of those in the audience have said, people do heavily rely on the likes of Instagram, and society has changed. We can't ignore that. I verify my information by a few credible sources on Instagram, particularly when someone has died. There are people that are trigger happy that want to quickly announce it, but I refer to one particular source because I know that they will wait to ensure that they're verified, whether they get sanctioned if they give misinformation or not. But I think we are underestimating the power of social media like Instagram and WhatsApp as well. The AI can't control, because if they send a video, the video is real, but there's no information. Before you verify whether it was the right date and the right location, etc., it's too late. It's already been sent out. But what I wanted to remind people of is, someone mentioned a comment of muting. There's misinformation, but sometimes we don't give enough of the correct information. And you will get people that are despondent and hopeless, where they think, let me forget about it, because it's always bashing the opponent party. But in this time, we must be hearing what is actually being done, has been done, and what will be done, rather than just the misinformation. We need more information. I think Estelle mentioned it on the panel before. We need much more information that's been sped out. So the more you give, the lessened of the misinformation or the disinformation there'll be. So just imploring people to then say, give us more information that's credible, so then we can then send that out, and then ensure that we have credible Instagram or social media sources as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So you know, the conversation we're having here today is just the beginning of things to come. Because if I had to contribute or speak to all that is going on, I have so much to say. I started my journalism at a time when the people, if you have any issues or there's any information and you go to a state agency, you know that that state agency, whoever is there, is going to give you credible information. What I say, or what I see now, is that most of the institutions that we have that are supposed to give us credible information have been corrupted. They have been corrupted because the people who are there are not there because they have gone through the mill, or they have, the point I'm making essentially is that the people who we find in most of these institutions are there not pursuing the interests of the state. They are there pursuing the interest of whoever put them there. And so the information they tend to give you is often skewed. The point I'm making is misinformation. It's actually coming from people who are supposed to give us credible information. Again, there was a time when if I needed information and I went to see you go and see a CEO, he will give you information and you know it is trusted. But these days, that's not the case. So we can have a whole conversation about that. And I'm just saying that this is the beginning, because we intend to have further conversations. Rashida, we intend to have further conversations after this, where we're going to see how we can actually help to fight misinformation and disinformation. This is just the beginning. Okay? I have two people standing here, so I'll just take them and then we'll wrap up.
Well, thank you. My name is Sylvester Sapon Soprano, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Convention People's Party. And I think that we've not been analyzing the positive sides of misinformation and disinformation in this conversation, because there are positive sides to misinformation and disinformation, especially in this electoral period. I'm talking about political espionage. Misinformation and disinformation is not necessarily bad. It can be utilized, diligently. It can be used.
Tell us how.
Well, I'm, looking at the issue from the perspective of political espionage, and I can see a well-trained communication team using information to their advantage. There is a thin line between disinformation, misinformation, and information. And I think that there was a signals man sitting on the panel right now. I think he sees where I'm coming from. That information can be utilized. There is this thing I read about the Free Syrian Army. North Korea also has an information army.
I was hoping that you would tell us how disinformation, misinformation can be beneficial.
Well, looking at it from an espionage perspective, I don't know how else to explain it. But you see, the person who is at a disadvantage because of misinformation or disinformation needs to be on his toes. You understand? Those who are getting the advantage of pushing out misinformation and disinformation have a certain information advantage. And I'm saying that as in an electoral year, that there's political espionage. Ghanaians, we need to look at some of these issues.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so well noted. When you say political espionage and somebody is taking that information, your point is well made.
Thank you.
When you say espionage, political espionage, and somebody taking advantage, clearly the person is taking advantage of the information that they have, or misinformation or disinformation, for their parochial interest, which often it is not in the general interest of anybody, okay? Which is why I would disagree with you that misinformation, disinformation has its benefits, not for the elections that we have coming up. All right, Pakwesi.
All right, thank you, Israel. My name is Pakwesi Shandoff, and then ordinarily I would have wanted to direct my question to the sector minister, but since she's not here, if it can be conveyed, I would be glad. And that's because she was touching on a raft of measures to deal with the elephant in the room. But if you observe the issue critically, you observe that all the ills of misinformation and disinformation normally is amplified by outfits that do not have addresses. Basically, bloggers with unknown personalities. You literally do not know them. They are normally the ones who would be doing most of these things. So you regularly would not see the notable outfits engaged in this misdemeanor. So I want to find out what is the measure to contain or control them, especially because the election is soon upon us. She indicated that there is a forum where the ministry is engaging all of them. How soon would that engagement be concluded, and what would be the mechanism to contain their activities? They are numerous.
All right. So she's not here to actually answer, but what we know is that the IGP has indicated that if you misinform, disinform, he's coming after you. Okay, that should wrap it up. All right, we have come to the end of the program. Before we actually wrap up, I want to invite Kokwi Selome, who sang for us the national anthem, to sing us a beautiful tune so that we wrap this up. A round of applause for Kokwi. She has such a beautiful voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I know it's been a bit of a long morning, but we won't take too much time. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Congratulations. Thank you for inviting me here. And we're going to lift our voices and sing here and sing against disinformation and misinformation. This is lift every voice and sing. Every voice and sing till heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising.
What a way to wrap it up. We thank you very much, Kokwi. And so that's the end of the program. I'd like to thank all of you who have been here, the dignitaries, the IGP, and all the members of the police board that joined us, and all the panelists and everybody else who joined us for this afternoon's program, this morning's program. We're grateful for your time, and we believe that we're leaving here knowing that we're going to work actively to fight disinformation and ahead of the 2024 election. I want to invite Yaira to come and give us the closing prayer, after which we will discuss.
Our Heavenly Master Jesus, we thank you, we bless you. We thank you for being in our midst. We ask that you sent your Holy One to come and join us and then help us with all the information that we've received. We ask that as we are leaving, We ask that your will shall be done and we shall be good citizens. This and many other blessings we ask through your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Where's Asempa Kania? Seminam Namati Asempa Mania, Namanoki Kami. Anyamia, what the ANS Trading Agency Limited in car. Sawoka said door to door for no day any wecha. It sounds what being what I was saying one was our door to door business name. Oh, Nyoma with UK, what they call Ghana. And I said Germany, what they call Ghana. 3 to 5 weeks, a back could do Nipano Punano say, try. That the moment demonstration was said to make the women say, one more at the form say Boko. ANS Trading Agency Limited. Air freight special service. And on your money at the Befa play. Intin Tempana, Kwakudu. Which my first half we also the new free Ghana, Aqua UK, and Germany. FAGG them, which are also at the year. I mean, drop a bomb. ANS Trading Agency Limited pair, and a 40-footer, any 20-footer container. For UK, Edico Ghana, and Germany, Edico Ghana. Oma Manio Mayame, importo, exporto, them there for you. Omo Ghana Namani, 0249 170 423. UK has over Freya 0790 802 7527. Germany 09173 771 2733. Ubenya ANS Trading Agency Limited. Our West Croydon ANS Trading Agency Limited. Quantum Brantem. Wana Beboya Baso. Maybe next time you feel up from the Bebro.
Let us say, the more about abbyexpress.com. Abbyexpress.com, the media, dear more. I got a phone near Bagina, the pop one, the other abbyexpress.com. And then I won't be free Ghana, and Africa, and Papua Saturday. Can tell me that I won't pen out the other down who are party as Siana. Maybe I will be abbyexpress.com. Yadia Papua Yamano, Yadia Brewa, abbyexpress.com. Yadia I mean, at the end, I wash a share. Who are Europe abroad today, and now America. Australia, no one, now that's Asia now. Maybe I will be in Slokra. Everyone is on abbyexpress.com. Now, your warrior was Sabeka. abbyexpress.com. Where they end your more. abbyexpress.com. Where they papa. abbyexpress.com. Yet the Ghana, and 12 hours.